Geopolitics in the Horn of Africa is already off to a combustible start in the new year. On January 1st, Abiy Ahmed, Ethiopia's Prime Minister, and Musa Bihi Abdi, his counterpart in the would-be state of Somaliland next door, delivered a surprise announcement. At a press conference in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia's capital, they revealed that landlocked Ethiopia is to lease a naval port and a 20-kilometer stretch of Red Sea coastline in the breakaway Somali state. In exchange, Somaliland is to receive shares in Ethiopian Airlines and, much more significantly, possibly official diplomatic recognition by the Ethiopian government. This would make Ethiopia the first country to formally recognize the former British colony, which declared independence from the rest of Somalia more than 3 decades ago. The deal has thrown an already volatile part of the world into even greater uncertainty. Authorities in Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia, have reacted furiously to the news that Ethiopia is willing to break with the African Union's long-standing policy against redrawing the continental map. Abiy is messing things up in Somalia, complains an advisor to Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, Somalia's president. Just 3 days earlier, Mr. Mohammed and Mr. Abdi had signed an agreement to resume talks over Somaliland's disputed constitutional status. That deal is now in tatters. Somalia declared the new agreement null and void and recalled its ambassador from Addis Ababa. Mr. Mohammed said the deal would serve only to fuel support for Al-Shabaab, the Al-Qaeda-linked jihadist group that controls much of the countryside of Somalia and first emerged partly in response to Ethiopia's invasion of it in 2006. Abiy, by contrast, portrayed the deal as a diplomatic triumph that fulfills Ethiopia's decades-long quest for direct access to the sea. In recent months, the Prime Minister had alarmed observers with bellicose calls for Ethiopia's roughly 120 million people to break out of what he has termed a geographical prison. Though Ethiopia once had 2 ports as well as a navy, it lost these when Eritrea, a region to the north, seceded to form its own country in 1993. Since a bloody border war between 1998 and 2000, which deprived it of access to Eritrea's coastline, Ethiopia has relied on the port of Djibouti for almost all its external trade. In 2018, it struck a deal with Somaliland in which it was to acquire a 19% stake in the recently expanded port of Berbera, some 160 kilometers from Somaliland's capital, Hargeisa. Leaders in Mogadishu were furious. 4 years later, the deal fell through. Abiy has long made plain his ambition to make Ethiopia a power on the Red Sea and in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, one of the world's busiest and most geopolitically contested shipping lanes. A peace agreement with Eritrea was hailed at the time as an opportunity for Ethiopia to regain tax-free access to its neighbors' ports. The Prime Minister also mentioned an opaque deal with Somalia's former president, Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, for Ethiopia to use 4 unnamed ports along the coastline of Somalia, including Somaliland's. Neither materialized. More recently, foreign diplomats and analysts have fretted that Ethiopia's Prime Minister, who is by turns messianic and unpredictable, plans to go to war with Eritrea in order to grab a slice of its coast. Now, though, Abiy can claim to have achieved his goals through diplomacy. In accordance with the promise we repeatedly made to our people, we have realized the desire to access the Red Sea, he declared. We don't have a desire to forcefully coerce anyone. For Somaliland's leaders, the deal marks a breakthrough in its 3-decade-long quest for international recognition. Somalia has been using delaying tactics ever since talks began in 2012, says Mohamed Farah of the Academy for Peace and Development, a think tank in Hargeisa. We can't wait forever. Their hope is that where Ethiopia goes, the rest of Africa will follow. The African Union is based in Addis Ababa. Abiy also enjoys strong relations with the United Arab Emirates, or UAE. Some foreign diplomats suspect the UAE, which is also close to Somalia's government, may have played a part in brokering the deal. Its announcement came just as Abiy also played host to Sudan's most notorious warlord, Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, better known as Hemedti, whose paramilitary force, flush with Emirati cash and arms, is closing in on victory over the Sudanese army. In this view, an Ethiopian military base in Somaliland is the latest step in an Emirati plan to secure a sphere of influence throughout the broader Gulf region and Horn of Africa. Further turmoil is likely, though Eritrea's rulers may breathe more easily now that Abiy appears to have achieved his goals without resorting to arms. The prospect, however distant, of an Ethiopian navy on their doorstep will hardly be welcome. Djibouti, which stands to lose out from competition for Ethiopia's trade flows, is also unhappy. The deal will probably also displease Egypt and Saudi Arabia, which are at odds with the UAE in its bid for regional dominance. To calm nerves, Somalia is appealing to the African Union and the UN Security Council to intervene. But as one Western diplomat notes, this is an age where, if you're ruthless and reckless, nobody gets in your way. It is a lesson that Abiy has long taken to heart.